Take a roundup of how private banks and PSBs have performed in the first quarter. My colleague Varun is here with that.
Definitely. So it's been a very interesting quarter for the overall banking sector, wherein if you see the overall report card of the banking sector, it has been mixed, wherein the overall credit growth has been low, the deposit growth has been low, also there has been increasing NPAs, the names have contracted this quarter, and also increasing provision and slippages has been a story of majority of the private banks this quarter. But more than this, every bank had its own story. So let me start with the overall private banking sector, wherein if you look at the big banks, the overall growth has now come to around single digit or around low double digit for majority of the banks. For likes of HDFC Bank, the NII growth has been around 5.4%, the profit growth has been around 12%, and for majority of the banks, if you look, there has been an overall decline in net interest margin to the tune of around 10 to 30 basis points. Also, if you look at the overall gross NPA numbers, there has been an increase in the overall gross NPA numbers. That means the overall asset quality for private banks have deteriorated to the tune of 10 to 30 basis points. Also, the provisioning and slippages for majority of the banks, for a majority of the private banks have gone up. No doubt, HDFC Bank had its own story of floating provision. Axis Bank had its own story of technical, adjustment that they have done. Other than that, if you look at the overall commentary of this bank, majority of the commentary of these banks was subdued. For example, HDFC Bank highlighted about the stress in the MSME segment. Kotak Mahindra Bank, they highlighted the stress in the microfinance segment and also the CV space, which has actually impacted the overall net interest margins for this bank. Now, if you come at some of the small banks like Bandhan and RBL, over there, the loans and advances, they have grown in single digit, although the deposit growth has been better than what you have seen in some of the big banks. But yes, the profit have declined from around 46 to 65%, and also the net NPAs have gone up, provisioning has gone up, and slippages have also gone up for these banks. Also, if you look at for banks like Small Finance Bank, AU Small Finance Bank, the overall growth has actually come down. Now, if you come to PSU banks, the overall growth for PSU banks have been better than what you have seen in private banks. For example, the loan growth, the deposit growth, they have been in double digit, although they have been in low double digit, but yes, there's a double digit growth which have actually, given in this quarter. The overall net interest margin for these banks have declined less than compared to private bank, and also the asset quality deterioration has been less than what we have seen in majority of the private banks. So it has been a private versus PSU, wherein majority of the PSU banks have outperformed the private banks. And let me tell you one thing, that every bank had its own story, especially on the private banking side.